All right, I figured I would just do a little filming before I got too much further. I've got the inner the inner wheel tub welded in place, and I just got done seam sealing the seams, and it's all welded to the stock. Wheel tub ends there, and then this is all welded together. Just drill holes 3/16 and then rosette welded kind of along the edge there. So I'm waiting for that to dry, and then I'll prime over this seam sealer. But I've got the quarter panel off so that you could see what it looks like right here. And like I said before I start, I'm putting primer over the seams. It's kind of a high contrast so you can see how much has been added to this section right here. This is the end of the Challenger body. This is how much wider it is now with the 71 Roadrunner quarter panel, GTX, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, before I put any paint on there, which will obscure all this detail, I thought I'd give you a chance to take a look and see what it looks like on the outside. So just hitting the back side of the panel, quarter panel, with a little, just a regular red oxide primer, just to hit some of the bare metal before I mount it up to the car. Protecting the edges, I'm going to hit that with the weld-through primer in case there's any place that I need to, so that the paint doesn't bubble off in those areas where I apply the heat. And over here on the wheel tub, I went ahead and got the brushable seam sealer and was real generous where there's the overlap, the seam, because you never know, somebody might want to use this off-road in Alaska or something like that, and you got to keep all that junk out of there. So alright, I just wanted to show you a little trick I just figured out over here for myself. Now this piece of metal on the roof is coming down more of an angle than this is. It's kind of created a little bit of a butt cheek as the two panels join together. So what I wanted to do is I want to lift this one up, and I want to lift this one up at the same time before I tack them. Now this is not perfect what I'm about to show you because I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, the main thing is that I want to be able to rotate both of these panels at the same time, and I'm by myself, so I have to be able to do it by myself. So what I've done is before I tack it here is I take a piece of sheet metal, this is the 045, I tack it at the edge vertically here on both sides. What that does is allows me to hold this piece here and this piece here, and then you can see I'm rotating the edges of the panel up just by using my thumb here to push on one piece of metal. You can see that it's pulling some of the ass cheek out of there, so to speak. So I just thought I'd share that little tip with you. It's a blind spot, can't get behind the panel now. Obviously it's on the car, so I have to be able to pull this panel up as I go while I'm tacking it, and this seems to be serving the purpose pretty well. And actually, it actually works pretty good too as far as manipulating one or the other. If you want to push more on the other and bring it up level, it works pretty good. Just thought I'd show you that. Starting to stitch old Frankenstein together here. Just going every 1.5 inches and joining it to the car. Working my way around slowly. I don't want to get too aggressive. Got this piece rosetted in here. That's all the welding I'm going to do around the window right there. So I'll just put a little, probably a little epoxy over that seam. Try to seal that up. Yeah, so I'm going along here and trying, like I said, to remove the little bit of butt cheek by pulling this out as I tack it in here, and then lifting the panel as I go and tacking it in. But it's part of the car now, so I haven't looked back to see how long it took to do this. Roughly 6 hours a weekend is all I've really spent on this so far, but it's been a number of months. Trying to distract myself because I still haven't gotten my front wheels. They were supposed to be here before Christmas. Well, jingle bells and all that is happening right now. No wheels. Anyway, that's what it's getting to look like. Okay, so now that this is welded up, I tried to reconcile it as best I could with the with a little trick that I showed you while I was welding it together, but still, it had some of a little bit of a butt cheek here. So what I've done is you've probably seen or used. These are basically a stud gun, and they're used for dent removal. So what you end up doing is you load a stud in there, and then you press down, attach the stud to the sheet metal, and there's a slide hammer that you put over top of it, and you tighten that down, and then you run it up, and that enables you to, well, it's designed to take dents out. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to get this so I don't have to load it up with mud in this little valley that I have going here. So I started grinding off the welds under here, but I decided to stop and show you, how it's welded to the inner wheel tub over here on the rim. It's just a 3/16 hole drilled out, and then it's spot welded, and that's about it. But I thought you'd like to see how that all came together. And this is that back area over here. Got a lot of epoxy over there, filling up the joint right there, and then the rest of this is just seam sealer. And come around here and show you this is the trunk extension down to the bottom of the quarter panel. Now, if I can hold it steady for 2 seconds, you see it's also welded to this seam, or this flange, I should say. What I had to do is there's a lot of sound deadener above in the trunk, and I didn't want to clean it all off and scrape it all off. There's no real need to, so it's epoxied, and then I put some steel rivets, all steel rivets, to hold it to the bottom side of the trunk floor. So that's the way I've got it attached. So whenever possible, obviously, I like to do a weld to connect the panels to the car. But this area is an area I didn't want to compromise the existing rocker structure because of the fact that there's has a lot to do with the structural integrity of the car, and I wasn't going to get into all of that. So I left the existing rocker underneath this panel. It's cut off about at this height. But what I did do was I went ahead and I just drilled and riveted this panel over a panel bonding epoxy so that this is glued to the car. I really didn't want to weld on it also because this is full of foam, and I had an experience with my Dodge Charger when I was welding up by the A-post and the door pillar over there, that I had a little fire start in between the panels where the foam was, and it was quite a panic to try and get it put out. So I wasn't able to, I'm not able actually to get in here and dig that foam out. So best thing to do is just to mechanically fasten it to the bottom of the car, and I'll be doing the same with the rocker that's underneath the door. It'll just be an overlay, and it'll be epoxied using panel adhesive to attach it to the car. And finally, here's the quarter panel attached to the car. It took me about 4 or 5 hours to just keep going back and forth and spotting this in and then grinding off the tacks, and then I'm just finishing this off a little bit. This is the area around the window. You can see that right there. Pretty happy. There's a couple of little spots over here that are a little flatter than I'd like them to be. Might end up having to pull them out with a dent puller just a little bit. You know, laying flat on a set of horses like that and then actually putting it on the car but not having access to these areas, it's kind of a guessing game for a little bit anyway. But yeah, I went back and took a look to see how long it's been since I started this quarter panel, and like I said, I only spend about 5 or 6 hours on a weekend working on this, but still I expected it to go a little faster, but as with everything, September the 22nd, this is the December the 23rd right now, but yeah, it's been about 3 months working on just this. So that's what I got to look forward to on the other side, because while I know exactly where I'm going with it now, the amount of work involved is no less than this one's going to be. So that's it for now.